Welcome back. This is still the POLITY on KAFTAN television, and we are reaching you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. Right now, I've been joined by a guest in the studio to talk about the one-year anniversary of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu with its agenda for youth development. And joining me this afternoon is David Nwokorie. And David Nwokorie is a special advisor on media and publicity to the senator representing the Imo North Senatorial District. You're welcome, David.
My pleasure.
Good to have you. Let me start by saying, are you aware that we now have, is it a new national anthem? And
yes, I do.
We heard in Nigeria.
Yes, I know. And a lot of people, I think you're one of the first to offer tutorial classes for a certain token.
Of course I did.
Thank you. So maybe I'll register for the classes later because I was not born in the 50s and 60s.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we are the younger generation, so we have a lot of learning to do, recitation and all that. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
We hope Nigeria will get along with that.
Amen.
But before we move on, a gentle reminder that our phone lines are now open for you to call in to give in your contribution or ask a question. Now let me quickly dive in because time is no longer on our side. It says 25 years of democracy and 1 year in office. 25 years of democracy since 1999 and 1 year in office. And a lot of Nigerians has come out of on the social media, but on the streets, and are asking, what should we be celebrating? What are we actually celebrating? Now, as a young, promising youth of Nigerian, how would you assess the 1 year in office of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu? Let me start from there.
Okay, so I would speak in a very objective context, based on the reality, based on the feedback. I'm a young person, as you've said, so I talk to young people every day. There are certain areas in which the president's initiative should be highly commended. And I also want to commend his appointment of the youth minister.
Oh, okay.
The youth ministers, in particular the Minister of State for Youth Development, Ayo Lawande, who has, I think, in my few conversations with him, he is perceivably smart, affectionate, creative, and has a knack for innovation. So I think this is the first time that younger people are having, from a government perspective, are having this unhindered access, so to speak. And I think that is very commendable, and I think it has boosted the morale. Unlike previous administrations where we have people who are maybe 50-something as ministers for youth and development, I think that was a misnomer. So I would commend him. First of all, it starts from the appointment ab initio, and secondly, it also starts. It also has to do with how these appointees are able to mirror his thoughts, because you can have a vision, very brilliant vision, as a leader, but the people you've appointed may be perceived as incompetent, and that's because there's probably a bridge in communication, or they're not able to mirror the vision. So I think it's been commendable. I think there has been giant strides. There's been a lot of notable achievements in a lot of sectors, so long as young people are concerned. Okay.
Same 2 days ago that marks President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's 1 year in office. He went on to revert the old national anthem, which we said we heard the Nigeria. And some persons have come to say on May 29, 2023, it was 4 subsidies gone, and the same May, 1 year after, it reverts to the old national. And some persons are even saying maybe next year it will be Nigeria, as Nigerian's name is gone, or will have to have a new name. At this point, with all the economic crisis that Nigerian is currently undergoing, do you think it was necessary for the reverted new national anthem? Or rather, what's your overall view in all of that?
Okay, so someone who is drowning, and assuming you're drowning, not you, someone is drowning, and then person shouting, help, 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 and you're asking, do you need a car? I have a car. Which car do you want? Is it blue or black? Is it Mercedes or Honda? Which one do you want? So from the people, it is I think the majority of the populace, when you try to observe their thinking, they feel it is irrelevant at the moment. They feel that there are more issues of pressing concern that are very cogent, that like hunger, like food inflation, like unemployment, like crime. I mean, people want to feel safe. The little income that they earn, they want to be safe, not using the monies they have to pay for ransom. But I also believe that from an elitist point of view, let me borrow into the line of thought of those who are quite directly responsible. Some have argued that when you're trying to change a nation, there's something called orientation. There's something called perception. You need to inculcate. There's some steps you need to take, to orient and inculcate some values, I believe, of nationalism into the citizenry. And it may not necessarily be responsible for boosting national morale, which means the support that you get. But I believe from what I've accessed so far, it is a streak of actions or event that is going to be finally unveiled or would lead to a bigger master plan. So I want you to think a certain way. I have to give you some books. I have to make you do some certain things. I have to make you think and talk in a certain way, right? Because I'm trying to get a kind of personality from you. I believe that is why these actions were taken. But at the moment, of course, everybody knows that fundamentally may not be, but we believe that it would eventually, it's part of a big master plan. Okay, let's revert back, because there's this nostalgic feeling that Nigeria was at her zenith. Nigeria was at her glory, the story tales of Nigeria's glory, the times of Tafawa Balewa and Zik and Ahmad Bello and all of them, and Obafemi Awolowo, that Nigeria was its best. Some people have also debated that. I like to borrow that line of thought, but I hope that fundamentally, I mean, it may take us like 6 months to finally learn this national anthem.
Right.
But something else should be added. I would have thought that in line with the national anthem, when you're revoking to the old, look at something that is really concerning to Nigerians and say, okay, I'm taking this off as part of maybe like part of the 1 year celebration, just like they did in Christmas when the prices of transportation was quite high. Yeah, that's what I think. And basically, that's what I believe.
Okay, let me take us back to the Mr. President's manifesto during the 2023 general election. He's talked about so many things. He's talked about agricultural sector. He's talked about security. He's talked about education. And more especially, why I will have to focus on the youth this afternoon is because you are a young Nigerian. I myself, I am. Now, Mr. President has talked about building a new Nigerian, especially for the youth, which includes job creation. Now, how would you rate Mr. President in that regard in just 1 year in office? Okay,
I'll take an assessment of the Ministry of Youth using the Youth Minister. Currently, we're working on an event. Now, it's called the African Youth Conference. This event is about the Sustainable Development Goals, and it's in partnership with the Ministry of State for Youth. Essentially, we are discussing some pertinent issues regarding the youth, like we're talking about education, we're talking about zero hunger, and the third one is a bit elitist. It's about climate change. So essentially, we are partnering with the youth ministry in line with other private individuals and organizations within Africa. So far, there are about 5 African countries involved in the project. We're trying to bring the conversation to Nigeria to see how young people, no, this is not young people organizing events and inviting, there's nothing wrong with inviting veterans. There's going to be a few veterans, but in a country where, or in a continent where young people average about 50% of your population, people aged 18 to 35, and you also look at the unemployment rate as well. You see people out of school. We have about 25 million out of school children. We want young people that are proven in different fields to participate in this event, to come to the drawing, to come to the table, to highlight some issues of pressing concern and give some sensible suggestions on how young people can help in solving this problem. So AYC is about collective governance. The team is the creative mind, creating sustainable ideas for long-lasting solutions. And it's the first of its kind coming up later this year. So the Ministry of Youth decided, again, that's where I say you have to commend, because it's an event that it's quite novel. This is the first time that really young people, a group of young people, and we're not doing it it's not for business purposes. It's, hey, come, let's have this conversation. What can be done in regard to education? The foreign experts are also giving in their ideas and recommendation, and at the end there will be a white paper that would be sent to some of our legislators who are also going to be part of the event at the legislature. And I also want to commend the Senate Committee on Sustainable Development Goals. Is also a part of it. Coincidentally, my principal deputizes that committee, and I also want to commend his efforts and his decisions to appoint younger people, a lot of people in their 20s and their 30s. He surrounded himself with these people because he knows that they're very creative, they're brimming with so much enthusiasm, and not just enthusiasm born out of exuberance, but enthusiasm that goes at the core. It's very fundamental. So I think he has done so much, and he's also using his role as the deputy chairman Senate Committee on SDGs to prove that the legislature itself does not have limits. You know, it's not just lawmaking. There are several other things that lawmakers can do, especially when you want to reach out to. And we are hoping that some of the recommendations or resolutions reached from AYC will be implemented, passed as bills, possibly. The government organizations may want to look at it, review it, and adopt a few. That is the only way that we feel young people can become much more involved in the process. Rather than waiting for you to be appointed as a commissioner or a governor, go ahead, reach out to the governor. Hey, Your Excellency, I'm doing this. Can you be a part of it? Of course. I think there's, I would like to dispel the notion that, yeah, there's a gap. I think there's also a large unwillingness from the part of younger people to, maybe they're not bold enough, you know, to say, sir, this is what we are doing, please can you? And that's why you see youths are disgruntled and they say the government really does not care much, or the government is not interested, I want to leave the country and all that. So overall, just to streamline what you've asked, I think a lot has been done. A lot has been done regarding youth development, and I believe that the government should be given an opportunity. Okay, I must commend the AYC have quite interesting and encouraging events coming up to get the youth involved. But let's talk about this. Talk to us about why it is important to have the youth in the system and governance. Okay, I'll come home. I represent a lawmaker as an advisor, and it's important to know that for there to be a transition, right? For there to be a transition, there has to be communication between the younger and the older generation. Okay. Someone has to take initiative. And again, back home, I can only talk of what I know, and that's why I'm using this as a case study. He has made a lot of youth appointments. He has engaged young people in some very creative projects. He listens. Hey, what do you have? He brings 1, 2, 3 people. Let's have a look at this. What do you think? You know, nothing boosts the confidence of a young person, even if it doesn't fly. You know, the fact that you're heard, and someone listens to you, it increases your morale, and it is also expected, as I've earlier mentioned, that the younger generation should be willing to break the ceiling. You keep waiting, nothing is going to happen if you keep on waiting. And don't criticize the government. Please try to be constructive. okay? Don't criticize the government. Maybe you have bad encounters with some people. I mean, government officials are not perfect. As of when I started the conversation, I told you that it's possible the president can have a very grandiose vision, but his appointees may not be able to measure up their capacity. Some people have spoken about enlarging the capacity of leaders to come to bear with the realities of the 21st century. There's a huge, humongous gap between what we're doing here and what's being done. If you want to peep, assuming this was Nigeria and a country and there are windows here and here, and you want to peep, let's see what's happening in Angola. Oh wow, you'll be there for like 5 hours. This is really happening, you know? So we should, as the younger generation, help the government, because the government needs, it's a democracy, right? The government needs help. So help the government by initiating ideas, help the government by holding it accountable. In my previous show here, I spoke about the different stratas, different, I call it models or types of politics. There's macro, there's meso, there's micro. Micro politics is about when young people come together to form pressure groups, form organizations, just in a bid to hold the government accountable in one area or the other. We've seen most of this in the Western world, but unfortunately we've not seen much here in Nigeria. And we want them to be supported as well when they speak up. And that's why we're hosting AYC to create some kind of notion that everything does not happen on the social media space, everything does not happen at the club, everything does not happen at the parties, everything does not happen on X or IG. There needs to be some real conversation. I know a lot of people are tired. Like, I'm not interested, nothing's going to happen, you know. But we're trying to say, we are youth. We're opportuned to be somewhere. And we're using this opportunity. There are lots of people like myself. It's a team, a complete team like myself. And again, with the support that we have from the Youth Ministry, the Senate Committee on SDGs, the Office of the President on Sustainable Development Goals, you can see that it's going to be really very potent. Yes.
But let me add to this. Over times, we've been hearing about youth involvement in politics, youth participation in politics, and it's just been talk. But at some point, the commitment of the youth in these various governance or system has been questioned. Do you think the youth would, or the youth are committed, or the youth are interested to be committed in this governance or system?
Okay, politics is
because before now we heard
ways.
about not too young to rule, not too young to run, and the rest of it. All those they all came, and at the end of the day, you kind of wonder or question: are these people really serious? Are these people really interested to, you know, get involved in the system or in the government?
I think politics from the grassroots, politics from the basics rather, you have to be educated. There's a lot of political education that needs to be done, and it cannot be done. I'm sorry to say this. It may not, that responsibility may not be shouldered by the government. The youth need to educate themselves. Okay. Yes. The basics. When you compare U.S. congressmen and women who are in their 20s, like who came in their 20s, likes of Ocasio-Cortez, and when you listen to them, you understand that they understand the foundations of the political space. Politics is about a profession. That's why people read political science. But political science is different from the reality that you see. I mean, we cannot say you want to go into politics. You have not read leaders of thought, political thinkers. You do not understand the difference between classism and neoliberal. A lot of politicians don't know what that is. But you cannot be successful. I know that politics itself is spontaneous. There are decisions that you have to make as the day goes by, as people, when you look at the needs of people, you say this is what you want to do. But I think the framework has been laid, and that framework is education. Young people need to be educated about politics. understand what it is, understand that it's not just about running for an election and sharing money, right? The most influential politicians we have that we still talk about, Mandela's, I'm being careful not to talk about those that were scared, but the secretaries, Kwame Nkrumah had his own issues, but these people, these are names that Zik, let me come home. Zik was an intellectual, an avid intellectual. You don't come and you're saying, youth, I want to gyrate. What are you gyrating for? Youth, I want to speak. Speak what? And you're talking, it does not make sense. And you're like, oh, give us presentation. Presentation to do what? You become a member or a commissioner. What do you do? Like, where do you even start from? It goes down. There are processes. You may not know everything, but as a young person, I've taken the opportunity, coming from a largely political background, maybe that has influenced and finding myself around a few of them, to understand, marry education, marry reality. Then you cannot come out as a youth and people not listen. People not listening to you. So there's so much apathy.
What do you mean exactly when you say marry education, marry reality? I
mean education is, there's textbook politics. Just like you have in international relations, you have classism, you have real politic. There's a line of thought called real politic. Real politic is politics as it is. There's liberalism, there's idealism. Okay. There's realism rather than there's idealism. Idealism is how it ought to be. Realism is the reality we have on ground. So when you marry that, I was once in a conversation with my principal, and he said, look, when you look at yourself as a young person and you discover that you're good in this area or that, calm down. Study the people around you. Okay. Because as a youth, there's always the fact of so much energy. You're bursting with energy, and as it is perceived, young people should not be that. You're seen as being a renegade. You know, they want you to be boring. I'm not using that word advisedly, but they want you to act in a certain kind of way, do some certain kind of things. So you have to be very constructive to make amends. Why not? While not making a colossal change, so to speak, because you may be often seen as a rebel. So you have to understand them and liaise with people as you see them. So you can understand now that politics is what people it's quite different from what is being perceived as. So sometimes when the few of us who have passionate about young people, youth in governance, sometimes we're being seen as outlaws, as jigs, as we're odd. You know, this person is a jig, you're too eccentric. Please, it's boring. Let's talk about life. What's happening? Where is it happening? Let's go shut. But how long can you shut down? You shut down, you complain, government is not giving you power. Your president said power is not given. You grab it. And that is the universal law. It is taken. It is taken. And it doesn't mean you have to fight. It means you have to walk yourself consciously to a certain standard as a young person. Invest in yourself. A lot of people do not want to invest. A lot of people do not like literally reading or doing all these things that are perceived as boring. Oh, I don't want to stress my head. Don't twist my head, you know. Let them do what they want to do. It's what they do every time. 2020, 2019, they rigged. 2023, they rigged. 2027, they'll still rig. Again, why not start up a youth group? Do something. You may not change the world necessarily, but start somewhere. Do something. Lend your voices. Let people hear you. We condemn these actions. This is one of the reasons why we decided to host AYC. We look at our neighbors. I've had conversations with youth leaders like Usman Toure, who, in the course of his activism, he has spoken with about 15 African presidents, very much prominent, and I've spoken to him countless times. My interaction with him, I see that there's a thriving market in smaller African nations like Senegal, like Rwanda, like when you see people going for climate change conferences. The youth, let me use a particular age range, say, look at people that are aged 18 or 16 to say 30. you find out that 70% of them are not Nigerians, like from smaller Central Africa, Eastern Africa, Northern Africa, and they're being listened to, right? You see people like Greta holds heads of state accountable. Greta Thunberg, climate activists. You see people like Malala Yousafzai, who was hosted by. It's an irony that the Nigerian president hosted a Lebanese girl child activist, but no girl child activist from Nigeria has been hosted by the presidency rather to have a talk at the villa. So I think we need to come up with initiatives like this to reorient, to change the narrative, to have a perception drift, paradigm shift in how people think. And I'm happy with the kind of youth ministry we have. And again, I'm going to reiterate, Honorable Ayo doing a wonderful job. Go down to the party line. You see the youth leader, Dayo Israel, also doing a great job. I mean, Dayo Israel is one man who strikes me as an epitome of humility. The first time we met, he came and said, "I'm Dayo Israel, the national youth leader of APC." I'm like, okay, wow. Because I've been looking at how to link up with Dayo, because I had a few things to share. And then instead of he coming and like, the youth leader, he walks to everybody. What do you have? Let's look at it. This is brilliant. Let's do. These are people who are vast. These are people who read, because they're always giving talks in one country or the other. So someone used to say, I have a pastor who used to say, don't laugh. He said, an empty head cannot be a head. You cannot get a vice chancellor's result with a headmaster's brain. So it means there's a lot of pushing. It may not be convenient. It's never convenient. But in the long run, it shows, because good leadership comes from consistency, training. You have to be trained. You have to discipline yourself. You have to say no to a lot of things. You may be perceived as an oddball, as I've said. This guy is very boring. They just carry this thing, And again, there's always a contrast between this set of people and those back home. I've said in my life, I don't want to be the young man who follows a politician. I'll never do that. I'm saying this on national TV. If you're coming to me in the next 10, 15 years, please hear it. I'll never do that. Follow you about no go agree, carry placard. Maybe for marches or protests, or for a march in support of a candidate to talk about estimate his values, but not to be on the street and carrying placard and shouting under the sun. That is not the kind of politics that Nigerians use, and people should stop seeing themselves, because all they get is money. You go, you sing someone's praises. Messi, Kaigeso, Nigerian Malala, who follow Messi. That's a colloquial for who follow Messi whether she's going or coming. Then Messi says, we should take this 1 million naira, yay, and that's it. You can't reach him anymore. Build yourself as a young person so that one day you pick up your call. Your Excellency, I have something to discuss. And he says, okay, fine, come. So not people who, I have a friend who may be watching and he say, comrade, we call them comrades. You see a politician who has not been there for up to 3 months. You're coming to give him an award of excellence. Excellence in what? As outstanding leadership performance in what? He has not even gone up to 6 months. Just because you want money. So they see such people as fools. Nobody knows what the future holds, but we don't want to. That's the narrative we're trying to change, and that's why I'm happy that the youth ministry that we have a breed of intellectuals, people who listen to you. And if I'm to rate the ministers, top performing ministers, I think I would.
I was going to ask you that.
You're
starting with who?
Okay, I would start with Honorable Ayodele Olawande, Minister of State for Youth. Okay. He's not because of my relationship with him or anything, but because he's humble. The last conversation I had with him, I told him, HR, the youth are happy because they listen. You listen. People can call you, you listen to them, you're calm. You ponder on what they've said and you give them a feedback. You're not dismissive. It's the first time. It's gradually changing. And I'm also happy that there's been a level of accountability from the side of the government to the appointment of special advisor on policy coordination, who at least some ministers are now on their toes to know that, oh, well, it's not as usual where once they appoint you, you're sure you're going to be there for the next 4 years. This is going to happen in the next 8 years. So we want to see, I'd commend the Minister for Aviation to a large extent. I'm also going to commend the Minister for Information. A lot of people don't talk about him. But if you notice, you discover that this is a time where, in this administration, where it's a drift in the usual pattern. Before, ministers of information talk about themselves or directly about what the federal government or presidency does. But this is the first time we're having, or you're the Minister of Transport. Come talk to us about what Transport Ministry is doing. You're the Minister of Agriculture. Come talk to us about what agriculture is doing. And there's this synergy between ministries. I think that is also a plus. Ministers come together, collaborate. Some people were not seeing this, and I'm speaking as a young, as a youth. A lot of people were not seeing this. It's your Minister for Mines and Steel. Oh, mercy, Honorable Minister, face Mines and Steel. That's all. But now people are thinking out of the box. For okay, let's think about this. Let's think about that. How can Ministry of Youth and Creative Industry collaborate? There's also I would also commend the Honorable Minister for Interior. He did a great job. He's doing a great job. I don't want to be too biased. I'm from a state. I also want to commend our Minister, Doris Anyete, Minister of Trade and Investment, and maybe one or two other persons who have, gone ahead to engender policies that are a far departure from the norm.
Let me talk about the youth involvement in politics and the governance system. Now, a lot of times we tend to assume, because in my language they say, or rather, let's just say that you want to cultivate in a particular portion of land. There are processes. You first of all do the clearing before you do the rigging and the rest of it. How do you think it would be best, or is best, to prepare this youth for this governance or system of governance? How do you think it's best to prepare their mind? Because let's take, for instance, you as a young Nigerian, you feel or you think with your capacity and ability that when you get into this office, oh, of course, I'm going to deliver, I'm going to do something, but now, let's say you're not financially stable, let me just put it that way, you don't have the money to purchase the form and the rest of it. How do youths, if they should get involved in governance, how do they overcome one of these challenges? Because I'm very sure there are more challenges, but time is no longer on our side.
I think the first step is preparation. A lot of people are not prepared, mentally prepared. I think it may sound a bit unbelievable or incredulous, but I think that the younger generation should focus on, if you're youth, you have a message. You may be discouraged at first. Stick to that message. It is a message that you need first. It is that message that I'll use my boss's story. He became a rep member at the age of 29.
At the age of 29? At
the age of 29, yeah, one of the youngest, 1992. And that's why you see him, even at 61, he's everywhere. He's all and about, very active. Sometimes you're working with him and you look up, he's already, and you're running. You're having to run to meet up with him. So he's very upwardly mobile. He was just an ordinary guy, and just an ordinary person. It was a time when communities sent people to school. And somehow, he's being picked for his charisma, his intelligence, his composure, and his bright ideas. And he comes at 29. He comes back home and they're saying, "You're very smart. We're going to support you. We're going to contribute and support you. And because we believe in you." He didn't have a dime, but people believed in him. So you should not be expecting money. If you don't have money, don't think that that's the end of the road for you. Play a role. Be a part. Start an organization. Politics must not be holding a political office.
But we're looking at that angle. We can see that it's kind of what is happening in the River State political party. That's the PDP, between the FCT minister, that's the former governor of River State, Nyesom Wike, and the president and the present governor, which is Fubara. This seems to be a kind of a godfatherism. Do you think is advisable in politics?
Do you mean, do I think what is that?
Godfatherism, because godfatherism, it seems we are looking at the crisis in River State to be godfatherism. The predecessor wants the successor to act according to his will, or giving follow my instructions or this and that. But now the successor is doing otherwise. Don't you think this?
Okay. Last time I was on this program, I spoke about the fact that the media is very powerful. Malcolm X says that media is powerful. Media, whatever the media says, you are. That's what you are. You have to do a lot of damage control to bring yourself out of it. I don't know Nyesom Wike, how do I know Sim Fubara, and I may not be at liberty to comment on all, but I think it is important in politics for you to have a mentor. There's always be someone who guides you, and so that you don't make fatal errors.
Okay.
And it is fundamental for every young person who wants to be successful. And this young person, these leaders or mentors in the long run may say, okay, this is what you want to do. I'll connect you to this person who can help you out with this, right? Or I'll connect you to that person who can help you out with that. May not be giving you money, but you're spreading your tentacles, you're getting contact, you're being given some level of visibility in the long run. And before you know, I know a lot of politicians who are very broke. We're just picked, single-handedly picked. I come from political family, so I can tell. You want to do this? Oh, fine. At times when I was told a story, I don't know how accurate it is anyways, my mom, who says at some point she was, it's an observation, so obviously there has to be some level of accuracy to it. Let me retweak my word. And they're looking for someone to run for a position. Hey, do you know someone, Messi, who can run for reps? We need someone who can run for reps now. They don't care about how rich the person is. We would sponsor you. But it's about the young person putting yourself in the right place and being able to learn.
All right.
Yeah.
Our time is fast spent, and I wish we could continue the discussion. But viewers, this is where we draw the curtain on today's episode on the polity, and I hope you had a swell time. David, it's great to have you in the studio, and I wish to have you some other time to give us more enlightenment on this. And at this point, this is where I draw the curtain for today's episode on the polity. Until I come your way again, I am Missy Emelite. Happy weekend.